Shropshire Sarracenias, first video of 2016 on the 23rd of April. Made a lot of work this winter with peat-free mixes, as a lot of you know, and also using a top dressing of coarser milled pine bark. Sometimes later on in the season, Sarracenia are pretty prone to airborne fungal problems. When you grow them in the greenhouse effect, they manifest themselves by little necrotizing spots of dead patches. And I read somewhere in the data sheets that the milled pine bark actually has an inbuilt trichoderma bacteria, which has been known to consume fungal spores, and in particular the kind of fungal spores which are troublesome to Sarracenia. So all the plants that are prone to this are now covered in this pine bark, and we'll see what happens. Some of the other plants, the dry looking pots here, they're in the peat-free mix, and if I zoom in on some of the plants, here you can see some of them actually been in the peat-free mix more than 2 years now, and they're looking pretty good. And some of the plants seem to like it. There's one there with the growth shoot there from the first leaf, is tremendous. Okay, I'm a little bit behind some of our Italian, French and German friends, and especially I'm living at 600 feet above sea level, or a little bit more than that. It means you're a little bit colder here, so every 300 feet you go up, you lose 1 degree on average. So by the summer time comes, I'm sure the plants will catch up. But also we've had a bit of a colder spring, and some new plants I've acquired. And also some other ones, Hurricane Crake A and B. And some other clones from other growers, so I still haven't stopped collecting and always find space for new ones. Now we're into the hybrid house. If we just pan round, there's a lot of flower blooms. Now the larger the greenhouse is, the more heat and warmth it traps, so the plants grow faster. So we'll look into some detail now. I would say probably 80% of the plants are now repotted in the peat-free mix, and you can see just how the growth is coming along. All being well, we should be moving house sometime during this summer, but it will be done very, very slowly. So I will have a new greenhouse being built, which will be approximately 20 metres long by 5 metres wide. And what that will bring, the temperature difference between this little 10 by 6 arc of light greenhouse to this 7.5 metre by 2.5 metre greenhouse was quite noticeable. So it's a volume to surface area thing. The larger the greenhouse and the more volume it has, in proportion to its surface area, the more the heat is trapped in. I'd like to think that means the plants will grow better. Here's some Brooks hybrids. If you can make it out, you can see lots of red shoots. There's absolute profusion of growth. And if I look at the H199 plants, they've actually now in pure peat-free mix, you can see how they've taken it to already. If I zoom in on the original two, which have now been 2 years peat-free, okay, I've removed the flower stems on these, and that seems to help. But when I had the plants out, some of you had seen on Facebook how bushy the roots really were. So all these are now in the milled pine bark, Cornish grit and perlite mix, and they seem to be thriving in it. Now this is my plants of Leah Wilkerson Selft, and you can see by the base of it how big that picture might end up being. I think it should be ending up at more than a metre. Span across, here's a newcomer. This is Sarracenia Anne Carlisle from Malcolm, Sunderland. It's just got itself an award of merit from the RHS as part of the Sarracenia trial. And another favourite, this is from Roy Cheek. This is a really nice name, Mr. Purple Haze. You can see some of the colour. Now we're in the largest greenhouse. This is a 10 by 3.2 metre greenhouse. This is a Sarracenia flava bench, leucophylla bench, and you can see some of the plants are in bloom already. Some of the plants are showing their earliest form. Is interesting to note. If I zoom in particular, some of the Virginian plants, you can see they're well advanced. And if you look to the Gulf Coast plants, they're just barely getting going. Again, it's been a cold spring, but when I walk in here, this is the warmest of all the collection houses because of the proportions. All the plants have this top dressing, but I've left last year's peat-free trial plants mix blank of the top dressing. But as you'll see in a minute, how the plants have reacted to its second year. You can see there's a nice, good, strong picture growing there. There's no need really to put top dressing on it because the top part of it is milled pine bark, and there is also in the finer grade the same properties of the trichoderma bacteria, showing evidence that it will actually help to suppress fungal pathogens. Here's the plant I wanted to show you. This is F136. It's in bloom. The pictures are coming, but you can see the vigour of it. This is a 15 centimetre square pot, and if I was to lift it up, I can just show you that. You can see how much root is coming at the bottom there, and they're all healthy. Put that one back carefully. So going across, this plant is F173, that's always the first to open. If I pan across again now to the leucophanas, some of them have got flowers, but all of them have got strong growth, and if in particular the L20C from Bolton County. Going forward again, if you can make out some of the coloured labels, the yellow ones at the back, for example, you can see the growth. And in fact, I'll show you this one. There's L67 in its second year. You can see the pictures very strong and very healthy. Just on the floor here, I also like my European pinguiculars, some grandiflora clones. I'll come back here. Here's the, I forgot how you pronounce this. This is from the Pyrenees somewhere. And also I'm growing a fair few Sarracenias just in sphagnum in a bit of water, and they're making some very nice colonies. They still need a bit of a tidy up. Now in the Sarracenia lata minor house, these are 6 A28 black tubes. 3 are in peat-free, 3 are just top-dressed peat mixes. But the ones with the yellow labels are in the peat-free mix. You can see they look very healthy, and the growth incredibly vigorous, and no fungal problems, even the ones that top dressed. I've trimmed the plants back a little harder this year, just gives them a little bit more chance of support, but have a look at A48 in particular, both from peat-free mixes, both exhibiting very strong, tall growth. And if I look at the peat-based one, it's not quite as advanced. I'd say it's almost got a 1-week head start. Moving on to the papyri, they've all got the top dressing this time. The ones with the coloured labels are in the last year's peat-free mix. The only luteola flower this year. But the growth has been tremendous. I've been using guinea pig droppings as suggested by a friend of mine who feeds his purps this way, and this is the best I've seen them this time of year, considering all the pictures you're seeing from last year. Some very large clumps. I've left a couple alone. I've been tempted not to divide them. And these are some seed-grown F2 Berkei PV11 luteola crosses. So if I cross these again, one likes to think that you would get a certain proportion being anthocyanin-free. The rubras will have some flowers to check out which colours they are. Very tall form of rubra. These are last year's pictures again, and now we're looking at the Sarracenia minor section, and by far the best actually is the anthocyanin-free ones. And when you got that back, the giant pictures, the best clone of M18. On the floor, I'm using the large trays to grow sphagnum moss, and found it very useful for cuttings. You can see some are beginning to shoot already. They had no roots. And this brings me on to the Flytrap House. I've now started potting up my plants into the same peat-free mix. To give you an idea, this Southwest Giant here is its second year peat-free. Okay, there's moss on top, and it's only because the water level is within about 2 inches of the top. But these are staying a lot drier, and they're also beginning to grow already, even after a week. But I still have all the peat-based ones to repot, and I shouldn't get the same kind of problematical moss problems as these. These ones I'll leave alone. These are ready for the Shropshire Flower Show, and showing good forms of signs of growth. But I like my fly traps, and I'm hoping that the peat-free mix, perhaps with a little bit of Osmocote, will give them a bit of an extra lift. And then we'll talk about cat food feeding later. Last but not least, I'm into the sales greenhouse. Bought in a lot of plants from tissue culture for the flower shows. I've got 2 of them, and also 5 plant talks. These are random flower divisions, no particular clone number. They're from the cold frame. That's all I've got left of the leucophyllus. Some more bought-in plants. Eva, Fogel, Sarracenia latiforms, and also some of the Sarracenia purpurea from outside. And they grow much better in here, obviously, and much more advanced, with good growth already, so these should be in time for the Shrewsbury Flower Show. Panning across, I'm up to DM46 on dividing the fly traps and doing them in number order. These pots, these trays here to protect the pond liner from the fierce sun we're getting, even though it's cold. Stop it shrinking in the sunlight. And then these are the hybrids left, what I've got left all the way through. And then finally some of the larger Leucophyllotine Juicetip and larger Juicetip clones. Some unsold fly traps from last year which will be repotted in the peat-free mix. And finally some of the rhizome cuttings are actually on the top bench to get more light. You can see some of them beginning to shoot already. You can see the little shoots there, first year cuttings. The open day, the first one, is set for June the 11th of this year, and I hope to see quite a few of you here. As I said earlier, this potentially is the last open day here before moving house, but next year, with the new greenhouse coming, plus removing 2 of the larger ones here, it should actually leave room for about 600 more plants. Thank you for watching.